Alrighty, folks, it's time for another episode of Ben Reacts. Thanks to President Joe Biden, who tonight pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, in the most expected scandal of recent memory. Remember, folks, don't miss out on breaking news and exclusive content like these React videos. Join Daily Wire Plus today during our best deal of the year. Right now, you get 50% off new memberships. No code necessary. It is indeed the final hours of our Black Friday deal. Head on over to dailywire.com/subscribe right now. Alrighty, so the big news of the evening, of course, is that President vowed that he would not, in fact, pardon his son, Hunter Biden, on gun and tax-related charges. He was lying. Who knew? Except for everyone, because, of course, President Joe Biden has always been a super corrupt and venal politician.
Stop everything. Joe Biden just pardoned Hunter Biden, and this changes the game. No, it breaks it entirely. This isn't just about Hunter or Joe. It's about how every elite in this system protects their own while you get screwed. Sure, Ben Shapiro is screaming corruption, and yeah, he's not wrong. But let me show you why this isn't just a Biden problem. It's a system problem. Once you see the bigger picture, you can't unsee it. Let's break this down.
In fact, from the very beginning of his career, he was attempting to make money for members of his family, whether we were talking about his brothers, whether we were talking about his kids, whether we were talking about his sister, whether we were talking about his entire family. His entire family has been the beneficiary of his political largesse. They've all used his name in order to pull down sacks of cash, and Hunter Biden, of course, was most famous for doing that, whether he was pulling down sacks of cash by taking money from Ukrainian energy company Burisma, having no expertise in Ukraine or in energy, whether he was attempting to take down sacks of cash from the Chinese with 10% held in trust for the big guy. That is according, again, to contemporaneous emails that were found on the Hunter Biden laptop, which were then covered up by the media and, of course, by the intelligence community, which claimed that it was probably Russian disinformation. Well, you'll recall that last year there was a huge scandal because the special counsel, a person named David Weiss, first attempted to bury the Hunter Biden charges, particularly when it came to the question of Foreign Agent Registration Act violations, tax felonies, whether Joe Biden was in fact involved in all of this. He attempted a plea deal with Hunter Biden that would have allowed him to get off scot-free, essentially, with some probation and some community service. And then he attempted to bury the tax charges in the gun charges. In the end, the judge blew that up because the judge looked at the deal and realized that the deal was in fact unbelievably corrupt, and there was no way to even pretend that it wasn't. So in the end, David Weiss and company at the DOJ, they had to go back to the drawing board, and eventually the judge in that particular case accepted a guilty plea in a 9-count indictment, 3 felony tax offenses, 6 misdemeanor tax offenses, as well as a gun charge because he had lied on his gun intake form. He had suggested that he was not, in fact, a drug addict.
Okay, Ben, let's be honest here. Yeah, this pardon reeks of corruption. But where was this same outrage when Trump pardoned Bannon or Kushner's dad? This isn't about one party. It's about how the elites on both sides have made corruption the default setting. They don't care about you, me, or justice. It's all theater, and this pardon is just the latest act in their never-ending show.
When he was, in fact, a drug addict. Now, again, those convictions did not get to the root of the matter with regard to Hunter Biden, which was he, in fact, a bag man for daddy? I mean, we have texts from Hunter Biden to his own children suggesting that he paid the family bills. So the chances that he was not, in fact, a bag man for the Biden family are pretty much zero. Everyone all over the world knew that daddy was the one with the weight, and they figured that by paying Hunter Biden, they would basically buy off daddy. This was always the bargain. Hunter Biden basically admitted as much. He went on national television, and he was asked whether he would have ever obtained any of these highly paid foreign jobs if not for his last name, and he said no. Well, Hunter Biden, again, gets convicted. He goes to jail. That happens back in September. And part of the reason why this happened back in September is because, as you'll recall, there were still ongoing questions as to whether Donald Trump was going to go to jail. So one of the ways that the DOJ responded to allegations of impropriety and corruption in going after Donald Trump was to convict Hunter Biden, the president's son, on this variety of charges without ever touching Joe Biden. So the idea was the DOJ was definitely not corrupt because, after all, the DOJ went out of its way to go after the president's son, even if it was leaving the president of the United States alone. Well, Joe Biden, you'll remember back in July, suggested that if his son was in fact convicted, he would not pardon him. And then after his son was convicted, he still said that he would not pardon him. You remember this? Well, it turns out that he was lying all along. So tonight, we find out that he was not only pardoned on the charges for which he ended up being criminally convicted or pleading guilty, he was actually pardoned with regard to anything he did between period January 1, 2014 and December 1st, 2024, including but not limited to all offenses charged or prosecuted, including any that have resulted in convictions by special counsel David C. Weiss. Okay, that is what Joe Biden issued tonight. So it is not just the stuff that he was actually guilty of. It is anything else, right? Any offenses that he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during that entire period. So that entire period, of course, would include pretty much everything related to the Burisma period, which was happening in 2015 and early 2016. Pretty incredible stuff right there. I mean, that is Joe Biden just taking himself off the hook by proxy. That's what that is. We'll get to Joe Biden's statement on the matter in one moment. First, when a big brand says free, what they really mean is see the fine print. There is no shortage of ads from the big wireless carriers offering the latest iPhone for free, of course, but you need to look deeper. You'll quickly realize that in order to qualify, you need to trade in your phone valued at $1,000, enroll in the $100 a month unlimited plan, and then pay the $35 activation fee. It's a lot of money for a free phone. You don't need to do any of that. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, has a better option. Get a brand new iPhone 14, which has all the bells and whistles you need. Plus, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, mobile hotspot, all for $50 a month. How about that? Half the price of the big guys. You get a new iPhone powered by America's most dependable 5G network right now. Go to puretalk.com/Shapiro today. Switching is super simple. Plus, when you go to puretalk.com/Shapiro, you do get an additional 50% off your very first month of coverage. Pure Talk is America's wireless company. Alrighty, so the actual statement that Joe Biden released is really self-serving, as you would imagine. I mean, of course, it has to be self-serving, given the fact that, of course, this is the president pardoning his own son. And understand the corruption here. The entire attempt to convict Hunter Biden was done as a balancing act in order to demonstrate that they...
This is the part nobody wants to talk about. The DOJ isn't about justice. It's about managing public perception. They give us Hunter Biden's guilty plea as a sacrificial lamb to make it look like they're unbiased, all while paving the way for this pardon. It's the same playbook we've seen before. Remember when Bush and Obama handed Wall Street a free pass after the financial crash? Same game, different players.
We're not, in fact, a tool of the Democratic administration. So their case was, we can prosecute Donald Trump willy-nilly, but we're not biased because we are also prosecuting Hunter. But Republicans were saying, well, yeah, I mean, that's all well and good, except that you know Joe is going to pardon Hunter the minute that he has the opportunity to do so. So it's all a fake. And Joe was like, no, I would never do that. I'm never going to. Well, it turns out we were all right. It was a fake. So Joe Biden puts out a statement and it says this, quote, "Today, I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Those who are late paying their taxes because of serious addictions but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear Hunter was treated differently." Ah, yes, it turns out Joe Biden isn't doing this because Hunter is his son. It's because Hunter was unfairly victimized by the Department of Justice, unlike Donald Trump, who, of course, had the Department of Justice activated against him. And Joe Biden said that he should, in fact, have the Department of Justice activated against him, while simultaneously the DOJ was openly stating that Joe Biden had committed crimes with regard to classified materials, but he was senile, so they wouldn't prosecute him. Remember, the selectivity tends to run in one particular direction. While the statement goes on, the charges in his cases came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election. Then a carefully negotiated plea deal agreed to by the DOJ unraveled in the courtroom, with a number of my political opponents in Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. Had the plea deal held, it would have been a fair, reasonable resolution of Hunter's cases. That, of course, is not what the judge said. The judge, as you will recall, in this case, looked at that plea deal, which effectively took the gun charges and then wrapped in all possible tax charges as sort of an addendum to the plea deal on the gun charges. And the judge looked at that and said, wait, I'm not even trying the tax charges. Why in the world would I sign off on a plea agreement that involves cases over which I am not presiding? That's crazy. So, once again, Joe Biden is lying. He says, no reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. There's been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution. He's a victim. He is, Hunter. He spent his entire adult life being a derelict, a drug addict who sires children by random women and then ignores them for years on end, who sleeps with his brother's widow, who runs around the world picking up sacks of cash for his daddy But don't worry, he's the victim here. In trying to break Hunter, says Joe, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough. For my entire career, I've followed a simple principle. Just tell the American people the truth. They'll be fair-minded. Here's the truth. I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process, and it led to a miscarriage of justice. And once I made this decision this weekend, there was no sense in delaying it further. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. No, we know perfectly well why you came to this decision, Mr. President. We totally get it. It's because you are super corrupt. That's the reason that you came to this particular decision. Listen, I get it, you're a dad, but also you happen to be a super corrupt dad. None of these
Spare me. The media would be screaming bloody murder if this were Trump pardoning Don Jr. Instead, MSNBC wants you to think Joe is just a loving dad. But here's the truth. This isn't compassion. It's corruption with a PR makeover. The elites always get away with it, and the media's job is to sell you the lie that it's somehow justified.
Excuses hold water, and you don't get to claim that you agree with the justice system while you simultaneously undermine it through one of the most corrupt pardons in American history right here, which is exactly what is happening. All right, folks, we're going to have a lot on this tomorrow morning, so you have to make sure that you tune into the show. I have a lot to talk about here that I'm not able to get to in the Ben Reacts, but I wanted to get this out quickly so you know at least my initial thoughts. We'll see you here next time. Or again, remember, right now, this is like your last moment to get that Black Friday deal. Head on over to dailywire.com/subscribe right now and get 50% off your new membership.
This isn't about Biden or Hunter. It's about how the system is rigged from top to bottom. Elites protect each other while the rest of us are left to pick up the pieces. If you're tired of this corrupt game, smash that subscribe button right now. Drop corrupt system in the comments if you're ready to expose the lies. Stay sharp, stay angry, and let's blow the lid off this together.